Unit 4, Lesson 2, The Causes of World War One. Unit 4, Lesson 2, Vocabulary. The main causes of World War One were the militarism, the alliances, the imperialism, and the nationalism throughout Europe. Beginning with militarism, that is when a nation's armed forces come to dominate a country's national policy. It's the glorification of the military and glorification of war itself. For example, between 1910 and 1914, Germany saw a 73% increase in defense expenditures, while Russia only saw an increase of 39%, and Britain and France were at 13 and 10% respectively. The A in the main acronym has to do with alliances. These are when nations and the heads of state sign treaties in which each nation involved pledges to defend the other if it's attacked by an aggressive nation. Basically, countries agree to help out each other in times of war to help preserve the time of peace that they're in. Of the alliances that began in World War One, we have the Triple Alliance of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, the Central Powers nations. And we have the alliances of the Allies and the Triple Entente of Great Britain, France, and Russia. This map depicts the alliances on the eve of war in 1914, with the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy represented in green, and the Triple Entente of Russia, Britain, and France represented in pink. Neutral nations are represented in the light brown or tan color. The I letter in the acronym MAIN stands for imperialism, which we learned last unit was the domination by one country over the political, economic, or cultural life of another country or region. And due to the Industrial Revolution of the 1800s, some European nations had a large portion of the world under their control. You'll remember from our Unit 3 studies, after 1870, the European nations began to acquire colonies in Asia, Africa, and the Pacific. This led to colonial rivalries, which led to strained relations among those European powers. In Africa, all the European powers except Austria and Russia had colonies there. Thus, there were many clashes among the French, the British, the Germans, and the Italians for land rights. The formation and strengthening of alliances and ententes, either directly or indirectly, came about because of the imperialism and colonialism after the Industrial Revolution. This led to an intensification of the arms race where each nation was preparing for war and fostered a sense of growing hostility among these powerful nations. We should all remember the Scramble for Africa lessons from Unit 3, where those European powers, the French, the British, Belgium, Portugal, Italy, and Spain, came in and had a land grab on the country of Africa. And the last letter of the main acronym, the N, stands for nationalism. This is pride and patriotism in one's nation. In terms of World War I, nationalism became aggressive and subsequently, because of it, a major cause of international tension. Independent nations desired dominance and prestige. They tried to dominate each other in Europe, just as they had tried to dominate each other in Africa. These rivalries may be regarded as one of the causes of the First World War, and they eventually lead to World War II. The spark that started World War I was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austrian-Hungarian throne, who was assassinated by a Serbian nationalist, Gavrilo Princip, a student who believed that Bosnia should belong to Serbia. Here in the picture, Archduke Franz Ferdinand with his wife, the Duchess Sophie, at Sarajevo in Bosnia, June 28, 1914, the day of the assassination. Rilo Princip was a member of the Black Hand. This was a secret Serbian society of the early 20th century that helped promote the liberation of Serbs outside Serbia from Habsburg or the Ottoman rule. Here we can see where Serbia is on the map in relation to Austria-Hungary, Russia, and Germany. Here we can see the details of where Sarajevo, the site of the assassination of the Archduke, is in relation to Austria-Hungary and the Adriatic Sea. This area had long been considered the powder keg of Europe. The Balkans were referred to as the powder keg of Europe long before World War I began. The nationalistic and imperialistic rivalries in the area were increasing, and each of these small countries contained dozens of different ethnic groups. They were almost unanimously opposed to living under the rule of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but they were surrounded by these major European powers in Russia to the east and Germany and France to the west. This led to the point of no return. Austria quickly blamed Serbia for Ferdinand's death and declared war on Serbia. Germany, citing their alliance with Austria-Hungary, pledged their support for Austria-Hungary. Russia, citing its alliances with Serbia, pledged their support for Serbia. Quickly, this leads to Germany declaring war on Russia in support of Austria-Hungary. France pledges their support for Russia, which causes Germany to declare war on France. Germany invades Belgium on the way to France, and Great Britain, who is an ally of Belgium, supports Belgium and declares war on Germany. That gives us the beginning in 1914 of World War I, with Great Britain, France, and Russia as the allies, fighting off against Germany, Austria-Hungary, Italy, and now the Ottoman Empire, the Central Powers. Another cause in this enormity of World War I was the Armenian Genocide. So what exactly is genocide? Genocide is the acts are committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. This is the downright slaughter, the annihilation of members of that group, causing serious physical or mental harm, and includes forcibly transferring children of the group to another group through relocation marches, death marches. So, what was the Armenian Genocide? This was the systematic annihilation or execution of 1.5 million Ottoman Armenians during World War I by the Young Turks. These four men were the main leaders of the Young Turks: Talat Pasha, Enver Pasha, Demel Pasha, and Behidin Shakir Bey. There were three phases of the Armenian Genocide. Phase one was to draft 60,000 Armenian men into the Ottoman army. Phase two began in 1915 with the arrest of Armenian intellectuals and elites. Phase three was the exile of women, children, and elderly people to the desert of Syria, hundreds of thousands of whom would die along the marches. Out. This map shows us the trail of the Armenian Genocide and their deportations. The larger the circles, the greater the amount of casualties were suffered at each individual spot. There were concentration camps and annihilation centers all throughout the Ottoman Empire, all with the goal of annihilating as many Armenians as possible.